male survivors of sex assault. And this actually leads me into my next story. And content warning for um, sex assault and inaction on behalf of authorities, because it was announced today, actually, Friday, the culmination, or at least the legal culmination, of what has been a 5-year saga coming out of Damascus High School in Montgomery County, Maryland. Damascus, just for some background information, like, you know, when we say tree-lined streets, okay, like, I mean, there's some nice shit in Maryland, some nice shit in Maryland. Damascus is kind of up there on some real nice tree-lined streets, like acre lots. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's money in Mo County, and then the money resides. Damascus, Poolsville. I mean, just I can't remember if I got lost or why was I driving out there or what. Did I know somebody out there? Hey, Seuss. But anyway, out Poolsville, Damascus, these houses are massive, man. These motherfuckers got horses and shit. Like, we talking about a real high income area, right? So this is also likely a reason why this story got some national attention, because of the age, race, gender, and class status of the victims. So 5 years ago in 2018, it made national news that junior varsity football players at the Damascus High School football team, 5 of them were accused of sexually assaulting younger teammates in a locker room. It was also alleged that this was a practice, they called it brooming, right? Some characterize all this shit as hazing. This is not hazing. Okay, this is sex assault. This is rape. But it was alleged that this was a practice that has gone on in this football program for a long time. These were apparently not the first incidents or the first time that freshman football players had been assaulted in this way, and that allegedly adults were aware of this kind of behavior and that this went on in this school. Okay. It made national news when a couple of the survivors came forward, and it resulted in a lot of resignations. But in terms of convictions, I believe 4 out of the 5 alleged perpetrators, well, I can't call them alleged, they were charged with rape, and they were initially charged as adults, but then their cases were remanded back to juvenile court, where I believe they did receive juvenile convictions for these charges. But and before I move forward, let me back up, because I do want to play, which is actually an editorial. I normally don't play editorials. I usually don't play comments from the commentators, but I thought this guy, is this Tim Wise? No, it's not Tim Wise. Somebody else. We'll get it. Hold on. If you could cue that up for me, Will. I appreciated this guy's outrage at this story, because, like I said, this happened in 2018. It's been 5 years since this happened, and there was a number of events that have come up since today's announcement regarding a settlement of a lawsuit. But Montgomery County Public School System has fervently denied any responsibility in this incident. And when Tim Wise goes into who knew what when, maybe you won't be surprised, but you should be aghast and somewhat infuriated. So let's take a look at this from WUSA 9.
Follow up tonight on the alleged locker room rape case at Damascus High School in Montgomery County. 4 freshman football players say sophomores used brooms to sexually assault them back in 2018. And today, lawyers for the alleged victims filed lawsuits. They claim the Montgomery County Board of Education, coaches, and principals at the school all knew about the alleged sexual assault, but turned a blind eye. Our Mike Wise has been following this story closely. He joins us this evening with his take. Mike?
Thank you, Larry. Like many parents of kids who play youth sports in Maryland, I was sickened by the story of the 14 and 15-year-old boys sexually assaulted by their junior varsity football teammates 15 months ago. It's bad enough Damascus High School officials may have known and ignored warnings about a deviant hazing ritual called brooming. That's what the parents of 3 of the players assaulted claimed in their lawsuit filed Thursday morning in Montgomery County Circuit Court. It's even worse that the then Damascus principal is alleged to have called a meeting over the school's intercom for about 25 players after finding out about the incident. After berating everyone, including victims that were present, she is said to have actually accused the kids of, quote, ruining Coach Colbert's winning streak. Casey Krause has since transferred schools, but if that's true, I wouldn't let her work in education again. 4 of the perpetrators, all 14 or 15 years old, pled guilty in juvenile court last year. The AD and JV coach were relieved of their duties. The varsity coach, Eric Wallach, resigned last month but still works at the school as a teacher. All the dominoes are falling except one. See, the most disturbing part of the complaint talks about a culture of allowing student athletes to victimize other student athletes that was purportedly discussed among parents at parties. Think about that for a second. Parents at parties allegedly discussed a program where, quote, many freshman football players were too afraid to change their clothes in the locker room after practices and/or games for fear of being broomed. That's just not deliberate indifference. No, that's parental neglect. That should be a criminal offense. For all the wrong-headed decision-making by school officials that creates a culture like this, the fact that some of the parents might have been enablers makes you want to confront them too. It makes you want to put them on the stand and ask simply, how in the hell do you raise your kids to think sexually assaulting their teammates is okay? I'm Mike Wise, a youth sports parent in Maryland. Feel free to email me your opinion at mwise@wsa9.com. Hit me up on Twitter at MikeWiseGuy, or ask us anything on the show at the Q&A at wsa9.com. Larry?
So I appreciate the fire in which Mr. Wise there delivered his editorial. And I appreciate the details that he shared there and the question that he asked, about the parents, how do you raise your child to think that, sexual violence is okay? And I have to counter with, it's not 100% in the parents' raising of the child. It is the messages that children receive from our largest society. And it's really a damning reflection to the rest of us that a 15-year-old can grasp that the use of sexual violence to wield power and dominance, to instill fear and intimidation. At 15, these young boys knew that. Do I think that their fathers were taking them in the garage and showing them how to broom their teammates? I don't believe that. I don't fucking know at the end of the day. But no, I think that kids can pick up and it's not subtle and it's not subliminal. And, and it's not to say that this is 100% gendered, because I know under the guise of hazing, young people exploit each other sexually all the time, or sometimes allow themselves to be exploited sexually under the auspices of gaining entrance or gaining acceptance into some sort of social entity, right? Be it an organization like a sorority or a fraternity, or to build camaraderie on your sports team. Like, this shit is not an anomaly. This shit happens a lot of places, right? It happens a lot of places, and it doesn't get the amount of attention that this story got. Let me tell you what's the latest here. Will, if you could please pull up the 7JLA piece, because this is the news that Montgomery County Public Schools to pay $9.7 million in settlement over 2018 Damascus High School sexual assault case. And that is what people's suffering sometimes, and this is unusual, to be honest. Like, most survivors of sex abuse and sex assault do not receive any sort of compensation. They usually don't even get their accuser prosecuted, let alone convicted, let alone sentenced to an appropriate time in jail, right? But 4 of the abuse survivors from that JV football team filed suit not only against Montgomery County Public Schools, but they sued the former principal, they sued the JV football coach, they sued the athletic director, they sued a lot of people personally, which I'm like, yup, sue all them motherfuckers, sue them all. That is another way, y'all. I mean, how do children receive these messages that sexual violence and dominance is an acceptable form of engaging with people? Because people cover up, they make excuses, they ignore, they look the other way. Like I said, it's been alleged that this shit was going on in Damascus High School's football locker room for years. And one of the things that Montgomery County Public Schools, or it was asserted that part of the reason why this assault occurred is because the children lacked supervision in the locker room. Let me say this. I was a high school athlete and I routinely changed clothes in the locker room. I did not want my fucking coach in the locker room. I'm even talking about my woman coach, my lady coach. Because can we reduce the amount of people looking? You know what I'm saying? Can we keep the number of folks that are potentially, gazing my way, but in the paranoid mind of a teenager thinks that everybody's looking at them, right? Let's keep this to as many people as necessary, and adult is not really necessary. Now, I would imagine girls' locker room behavior might be a little different than boys' locker room behavior. I played sports 3 out of 4 years. Nothing weird ever happened in the girls' locker room. No one took my bra. No one stole my panties. Like, no one ever tried to do any fucking weird shit on some physical touching or anything like that. It was all business in the girls' locker room. But apparently the boys' locker rooms operate a little different. You can keep that up there, Will. Sorry, I was running my yam. And getting to that because, like I said, MCPS, Montgomery County Public Schools, have denied all responsibility, but they have agreed to this $9.7 million settlement to resolve all this litigation that has been ongoing for 5 years. And guys, that is likely where this ends. I would imagine it does not end in the lives and in the minds of these survivors, these young folks. But it is just a reminder of a couple of things. That number one, children can harm other children. Okay. It's important that we understand that these kids in the 21st century have been exposed to so much normalized violence and sexual violence that they, I believe, have a warped sense of reality and have a dulled sense of empathy and compassion for other people. Sometimes it can be a pack mentality with some of these young folks. And y'all, yeah, if y'all haven't noticed, I'm making deliberate efforts not to just lay this at the feet of boys and men. Because I don't think I have to. Like, we can acknowledge that, all people harm, yeah. I don't know about this shit, though. You know what I'm saying? The last incident that I can think of that made national news involving someone being assaulted with a broomstick was those fucking asshole NYPD officers who assaulted, I believe it was Abner Louima. And not to say that girls and women don't do fucking weird shit with objects and etc. But goddamn, I don't see, I do not be seeing the commiserate headlines, man. Regardless, the messages are getting through. Domination, intimidation through sexual means, through sexual violence, without people's consent is something that this generation, at least parts of them, are picking up as being normalized and okay. And this is where I put out the call. You know what I'm saying? Like, we actually can stop this. I really do believe that. That's why I talk about it so much, because I want subsequent generations of everybody. I speak from the perspective of a woman who was once a girl. So I feel a natural affinity and kinship for women and girls. So that's why I speak so much about women and girls. But cases like these bring into refocus the way that young boys and men are harmed. And there needs to not only be accountability, but there needs to be a preemptive intervention with these boys about what is acceptable, what is actual roughhousing, and what constitutes as rape and sex assault. I think a frank discussion about consent could have went a long way with some of these football players. Maybe they would have understood that their teammates were not consenting to any of this. So as we can see clearly, talking to young folks about consent can save young boys and girls from being traumatized. And we have to, and I applaud the parents of these victims and the survivors, because I can't imagine what it's like to be a teenage boy. You know, we, as much as LGBTQ folks and culture have been accepted in our culture now, probably more than ever, America is still ragingly homophobic, okay? Like, ragingly homophobic, which is, I imagine, the reason, the driving reason why a lot of men do not report sexual assaults, because they feel emasculated. They feel that they may not be believed. And if they are hetero or not gay, like, they feel as though they will be slurred by being labeled as gay because a man was able to take advantage of them and assault them. And I would like for that mentality to die also. Like, these young folks, these young men and boys need to understand that they have autonomy. People do not have a right to violate them. They also have to give consent. Like, men and boys should also be taught that you can give consent. You know, your consent should be obtained. Should also be obtained, right? And a non-consensual sexual encounter is assault and rape. And young boys and men need to be taught that. They need to understand that. And all the stigma around them reporting these things. And again, and I'm not even saying reporting is the fucking solution, because we know how poorly investigated and prosecuted so many sex assault crimes are, especially against men, right? So what is the solution? Well, I submit to my prior my prior motion, Your Honor. Disappear these fucking predatory ass motherfuckers. Now, in the case of these kids specifically at Damascus, I don't think that they should be disappeared under my standard of rule, right? If I rule the world, I wouldn't. I disagree with throwing children away. Okay, I wholly disagree with that. I absolutely think that children, teenagers in this respect, should absolutely be given an opportunity for rehabilitation. But if it were up to me, they would be highly monitored, right? And I'm talking not only just monitored. I mean, like, I'm gonna take all the fun out your fucking 20s, young man. You gonna be on a ton of surveillance, okay? Because you've proven that you are susceptible to predatory and violent behavior. I believe that the young people should get a chance to learn and grow, but that learning and growing has an expiration date. You know what I'm saying? And we can debate whether or not 18-year-olds or 21-year-olds or 25-year-olds are adults. You know, that is an age marker that, you know, we can figure out. But for a significant amount of time, we keeping a close eye on you and doing routine psychological tests on you and checking in with people that know you, because unfortunately, sexual predation and violence are not one-offs. And the leading indicators start in childhood and puberty and during the teenage years about potential future indicators. So I think that kids should be given a chance, should be given another chance, but not without serious consequence, not without serious mental health and emotional health intervention, behavioral monitoring, and the like, and made sure that they themselves are given special instruction and counseling, not only about the error of their behavior. They can't just be contrite or remorse for it. You need to know why you were motivated to do such a thing to begin with, and then the steps need to be taken for you to unlearn that. You know what I'm saying? It's not just this ain't just a I'm sorry, motherfucker. Like, you need to know not just what you did wrong, but why. What influenced this behavior? What drove this behavior? And it's not that, well, little Joey said, no, fuck that. You did shit too. And if you didn't do it, you watched. And that is also culpability, in my opinion. So anyway, y'all, I want to keep talking about some of these situations and these incidents to, again, just demonstrate, number one, the level of hypocrisy that America specifically says when that it cares about, number one, the welfare of children, and number two, that the police must be funded to be the guarantors, the absolute guarantors of public safety, when day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, year in and year out, decade in and decade out, the police keep proving to us that they ain't shit.